Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. In episode 7 of Ahsoka, we got a brief rematch between Ahsoka Tano and Baylan Skoll in the plains of Peridia, and by brief, we mean very brief. However, we still believe there's a lot to pull from the duel. Although the entire duel lasted roughly 25 seconds of total screen time, we can see how Ahsoka has changed her form, as well as why she is currently still unable to best Baylan Skoll. In the duel, we saw Ahsoka try and fail to take out Baylan a second time. The first time she lost pretty badly in Anakin's own words, and the second time wasn't much better, though she at least didn't die again. Baylan is proving to be far more powerful and challenging though than initially thought, as it cannot be understated that by this era, Ahsoka Tano is quite literally one of, if not the best duelist currently alive. Even though she begins training again in order to best Baylan, she still cannot get the upper hand on this Dark Jedi. At least not yet. Something appears to be very wrong with this duel if you look at it closely, especially when concerning Ahsoka's blade work in particular. In today's video, we wanted to analyze this short skirmish and talk about the improvements Ahsoka made from last time, and what improvements she is going to need to do if she is able to topple this mountain of an opponent. Because as of right now, when Baylan says, "You cannot defeat me," he actually kind of has a point. So let's get into it, and let's break down and analyze this duel, as well as what Ahsoka needs to change. At the beginning of the episode, we are shown Ahsoka on her ship doing some heavy practice with both lightsabers ignited this time. For a good bit of episode 4, she wasn't using both blades, but instead opting to just use one in one-on-one combat. A strange choice that many of us were questioning, and one that we assumed was the reason she was defeated by Baylan on Seatos. Ahsoka is showcased to always be an exceptional duelist, as she was trained by Anakin Skywalker. Of course, this doesn't have to be said, but we're going to anyway. He was one of the finest warriors in the Jedi Order by the time of the Clone Wars, and was considered only rivaled by Mace Windu, Kenobi, and Yoda in terms of the blade. Ahsoka was trained in the ways of Form 4 Ataru and Form 5 Shien, as well as its variant that Anakin used, Gem So. Since she has had such a wide range of forms to choose from, we often see Ahsoka mixing and matching techniques in order to form one cohesive style, which we see her using powerful strikes of Gem So, as well as the efficient defenses of Shien, and the acrobatic movement of Ataru. Just using one or a few of these styles allowed Ahsoka to make embarrassments out of Inquisitors, and completely dismantle Marok in both of their interactions. However, it seems that Ahsoka has met her match when it comes to Baylan. All of this is not to take away from Ahsoka's massive skill, but rather to speak to Baylan's skill. In their duel on Seatos, we did a full breakdown of their fight from start to finish, first analyzing the stance-up, their use of lightsaber forms and leverage, and of course talking about Ahsoka's choice of only using one blade. They had an excellent fight, with neither one really able to get a leg up on the other. Ahsoka's skills were failing her due to both the environment she found herself in and how Baylan was fighting. The enclosed space of the rocks that they were fighting amongst was causing Ahsoka to have trouble using Ataru movements, since Form 4 is infamously weak in confined spaces, giving Baylan the advantage. Combine this with Baylan's use of the Great Saber to control the area and movement made it difficult for Ahsoka to get the most out of her footwork and blade work, the environment giving a clear edge to Baylan Skoll. The key to leverage was a massive point in this duel, and most of the time, Baylan had superior leverage. Unlike Ahsoka's duel with Marok, none of her Form 5 techniques helped her out against Baylan, since he was able to counter her aggressive blade work with some powerful strikes of his own. This fight echoed her duel against Darth Vader on Malachor, where Ahsoka was unable to truly get a handle on her larger, more experienced opponent. On Seatos, Ahsoka's inability to gain proper leverage or stand against Baylan's raw strength ended up being her downfall. In episode 7, we see Ahsoka is going back to her roots and training with two lightsabers in reverse grip. Not only this, but she is training according to the holotapes given to her by Anakin, using his specific lessons in lightsaber combat. Ahsoka is clearly training with the single intent of defeating Baylan. No one knew Form 5 better than Anakin Skywalker, so of course, it only makes sense for her to resort to his training in order to improve her blade work, especially against someone who also uses the same form. Ahsoka finds it important to go back over the basics, as she always has, if not more important though than developing the advanced skills. This was Qui-Gon Jinn's belief and approach to lightsaber combat, as in the canon novel Master and Apprentice. We learn that Qui-Gon kept Obi-Wan training in the basics of lightsaber combat far longer than most other Padawans. This would get on Obi-Wan's nerves as he believed he was ready to move on to advanced training. Qui-Gon, though, would later reveal that it wasn't that he thought Obi-Wan wasn't ready for more, it's just that he believed that honing the core basics of lightsaber combat would give Kenobi a far stronger foundation from which to enhance his style. This allowed the practitioner to be able to have a reliable fallback when their advanced techniques ultimately fell short, being a great springboard for a duelist to be able to apply their knowledge to the other forms, thus learning them even quicker. Qui-Gon criticized the idea of rushing into advanced lightsaber combat too quickly, as most Masters of the Order allowed their Padawans to do. It would be this training, given to Obi-Wan, that Obi-Wan would later gift to Anakin Skywalker, and now Anakin to Ahsoka. Back to the basics. After being defeated by Baylan, Ahsoka goes back to training with Anakin, humbling herself once again to the place of a learner for the first time in over 20 years. Ahsoka has been running through her opponents for literally 2 decades, the only exception really being Darth Vader. It is implied that during their hyperspace travel, Ahsoka went back and listened to all of Anakin's recordings while training under him. And now that they've arrived on Peridia, one of her first goals is hunting down Baylan and stopping him. Ahsoka is on her way towards becoming the White, and she has gotten back to her old confidence and optimism. No longer is she a cynic, but she's playful and bold. So how does this all go when she finally meets with Baylan and they duel yet again? In all honesty, not very well, which is quite shocking. Baylan almost destroys her in the fight on Peridia. They stance up, and Ahsoka is now back to using the dual blades, the larger one in the forward grip, the Shoto in the reverse grip, a style which is decently versatile. Typically, the way one would utilize these grips is likely to use the Shoto as a defensive tool while maintaining the attack on the main blade. Ahsoka ultimately tries this while also using the Shoto as an offhand power attack weapon, but again, even this falls short. Ahsoka is unable to do so much as make Baylan budge in reverse. Baylan masters the most difficult aspect of this duel, which is keeping track of both of her blades, keeping track of his now more versatile opponent. We also notice that he forces Ahsoka to make most of her attacks from her offhanded blade. This is likely again because she's trying to use the Shoto as a deflector tool, a way to add onto her defenses, which was definitely a lesson she learned from their last duel. On Seatos, Ahsoka's defenses were battered down to nothing by Baylan's overwhelming power, and here, Ahsoka is able to stand her ground much better in the defensive category, but now her attacks are ultimately suffering. Besides her increased defense, the other good improvement Ahsoka has was the choice of timing and location in which to challenge Baylan. She caught him out in the open in an open field, no obstructions around them, and plenty of space to move. By fighting on her own terms, she was able to make the most out of her movement and keep Baylan from controlling her space. She moved all around him the way that Obi-Wan moved around General Grievous on Utapau. Yet despite this, we noticed yet another flaw in this battle. Ahsoka apparently still can't gain any advantage over Baylan, at least not yet. In both the duel on Seatos and on Peridia, Ahsoka is able to break his guard enough to land a melee strike. On Seatos, she broke his guard and hit him with a flurry of kicks, the last one carrying enough power to actually knock him down. This was a great sign, and she does something similar on Peridia, again breaking his guard and landing a hard kick and staggering him momentarily. Yet, she is incapable of landing a meaningful blow with her sabers. She's able to maneuver around his guard well enough to kick him, but it matters very little when his armor can just tank the damage. Again, Baylan keeping track of both weapons exceptionally well in this duel. If anything can be said about Baylan, he is focused, both in his goals as well as in the way that he duels. Because of Baylan's armor, he's able to focus more on the blade-to-blade combat, which ultimately has saved him thus far. This is why Ahsoka is having such trouble breaking his guard with her lightsabers at all. Even when she manages to slip past his saber, Baylan catches her hand. Baylan is always a step ahead, and at the moment, Ahsoka has very little hope of defeating him alone, unless she tries a new strategy altogether, which we believe is very possible. I do believe that as the two of them duel more, that Ahsoka will eventually take him down. All things considered, Peridia did go better than Seatos. Although in this duel they stalemated, Ahsoka did make some pretty big improvements, both in the aspect of her movement and defensive capabilities, using far more of Shien than of Jem So, but unfortunately, causing her offense to drastically suffer. Baylan's conservative movement and blade work make him an absolute tank. He's a heavyweight in the way that Vader was a heavyweight, and Ahsoka is going to need to adapt to this if she's ever going to bring him down, which of course we believe she will. But anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this duel? What are your thoughts on the improvements that Ahsoka made, and why she still is unable to take down Baylan? And in your opinion, with your knowledge of the lightsaber forms and the lore, what is the key that Ahsoka is missing? As always, my friends, thank you so much for visiting the channel, and may the Force be with you.